Hey, assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me? I think you're on mute. Um, I can't hear you. You're on mute. Try now. Hello? So we're streaming live to YouTube, so most attendees will join from there. I can't hear you.
Assalamualaikum. Should I share my screen now? I just need 1 second. Yes, I will be taking questions, inshallah. Okay, I need your help to share. I don't know what's happening. Yeah.
Yes, I just made you the co-host. See if you can share now. Yes, I just made you the co-host. See if you can share now.
I'm sorry about that.
No worries. I think we can start in a
Can
couple minutes.
everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm done. So sorry about that. I was having technical difficulties. So shall I begin then? In a moment. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Okay, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Peace and blessings be upon each one of you. Thank you for joining us tonight on our topic of seniors' mental health. My name is Mariam Rahman. I will be presenting to you this topic. And inshallah, the goal of this workshop and seminar is to have a better understanding, in general, what mental health is, what some of the risk factors, warning signs are, to dispel some of the myths related to seniors and mental health, as well as, find some coping strategies for seniors and older adults. So inshallah, let's begin. So first of all, I am here on behalf of Cedarway Therapy. So this is a group practice with many experienced clinicians. So, we offer diverse languages. So, depending on the language, we have clinicians who speak Urdu, Arabic, Farsi, French, etc. The issues that we deal with, because mashallah, we have so many clinicians, the issues we deal with are very vast, from depression, anxiety, stress, marital counseling, life transition. We actually just started up in COVID, so we don't exactly have an office space yet, but I think inshallah, whenever things are safer, it will most likely be in the West End, but for now we are operating solely virtually, online video or via phone. And this is our website, cedarwaytherapy.com. So let's start with the basic, right? So what is mental health? I'm sure a lot of us have become familiar with this topic because, we've been talking about it so much more, and maybe even during COVID, it's become a very rampant topic. But it's important for us to get to the basics and define it. So it includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It helps determine how we are going to handle stress, relate to others, and just make choices in general. It's important at every stage of life. It doesn't matter where we are in our life, it matters at every stage in life. There are things to consider, such as, things that might predispose us to, mental health conditions. So maybe biological factors such as genes or brain chemistry, life experiences, such as if somebody's experienced trauma or abuse, or a family history of mental health problems. So, for example, if somebody's mother, had depression, that the child is more likely to experience depression. It's hard to say, I'm just speaking generally, but it could be because maybe there is an actual genetic predisposition, or maybe it's the actual environment that they are in that predisposes them, or maybe it's just multifaceted. Next, so age is not a risk factor for, mental health, because we say this, and it's important to consider the concept of ageism. So So what is ageism? Ageism, it's when we have negative attitudes or stereotypes based on someone's age or just alone on the basis of age. So in my next slide, I will go over dispelling some of the myths regarding, ageism and regarding people aging and what people think. But a lot of it has to do with health conditions, for example. So sometimes important life changes happen, right? And they can make us feel uneasy, stressed, and sad. Some of these changes are bound to happen, such as the loss of a loved one, retirement, dealing with a serious illness. Many older adults, they do eventually adjust to these changes, but some people will have more trouble adjusting. So this puts them more at risk for these mental illnesses, such as depression and anxiety. So it's important to recognize and treat these mental illnesses in older adults. Some of the warning signs, which might not seem that different no matter what age you're at, but specifically in older adults, it's important to pay attention to changes in mood or the energy level. Is there a change in the eating and sleeping habits? Are they withdrawing from the people and activities they usually enjoy? Are they unusually confused, forgetful, angry, upset, worried, scared? They're having unexplained aches and pains, feeling sadness, hopelessness. Maybe there's smoking going on, drinking, using drugs more than usual, anger, irritability, aggressiveness, suicidal thoughts might be a concern, hearing voices, for example, thinking of harming oneself. So my point is, in all these warning signs, that it's not that different. These are warning signs that would be concerning, regardless of whatever age somebody is at. Next, I want to dispel some myths. So like I mentioned in the previous slide about ageism, right? So when it comes to just older adults in general, let's just leave out mental health in general, there are many, many stereotypes that older adults unfortunately experience. It could be that, people, when they think of older adults, they label them as frail, or they're just confused all the time, or, that they all have dementia, which is not true by any means. And when we have these stereotypes, when ageism is present, what happens is, unfortunately, a lot of mental health concerns go undetected, and that means untreated, which is obviously very problematic. So things to consider, that, like, for example, depression is common or that it's not treatable. We have to consider what are some of the life experiences that happen for the older adults. What do they experience? So, for example, it might be, retirement or the lack of activity, maybe a loss of the spouse, certain medications could be causing this, physical illness, maybe they're isolated, especially after, the death of the spouse. There could be fear of dying, maybe again, even the family history of depression, other mental health issues. The next myth is that older adults can't learn new things. This is not true by any means. Older adults, they still very much have the ability to learn new things, create new memories, and improve their performance in a variety of skills. So while aging does come often with, changes in thinking, many cognitive changes are positive, though, such as having more knowledge and insight from their lifetime experiences. So this is a stereotype we have about the older adults, but I think it's a positive one where they have a lot of wisdom based off of their life experiences. Trying and learning new skills may even improve cognitive ability. So, for example, there was a study done that found that older adults who learned quilting or digital photography had improved memory. Seeking out new social connections with others and engaging in social activities, maybe like a book club, for example, can keep the brain active and may also boost cognitive health. So that these are all things to consider. And in a later slide, I will cover challenging the brain, what that looks like. So the last one is that seniors don't respond well to mental health treatment because they're so set in their ways. So first of all, we all know that there's a huge stigma when it comes to mental health, period, right? And then we also know that, again, back to the stereotypes, that because so-and-so is so old that they're not going to change. They're just set in their ways. And it's not necessarily about changing somebody's and their habits, but the goal is to, either provide support through mental health support services, or, allowing them to think in healthier ways. That's how we view it in psychotherapy. So altogether, too often, right, we hear how rigid and set in their ways older adults are, which leads to the perception that elderly mental health issues are untreatable. People think, what's the point? Once again, they're set in their ways. In actuality, again, it's not the case at all. Older adults suffer because sometimes what happens, well-meaning loved ones don't see the logic in getting help for someone they feel won't respond well to therapy. If you look at the statistics, you will see that older adults are much more willing to stay in touch with things like technology than we give them credit for. So what is my point in technology? Because technology, depending, for example, how tech savvy someone is, especially, for example, in COVID, right? In a time period like this, there's a lot of programs and services that I will go over at the end that, allow for someone to seek mental health help through, online platforms, and it allows them to seek help. So how are mental health and well-being connected? So our mental well-being describes our mental state. So how are we feeling? How well can we cope with day-to-day life? If we have good mental well-being, we feel relatively confident. Self-esteem is good. We express a good range of emotions. We cope with stress of daily life, and we build and maintain good relationships. So the good news is that seniors' mental health is that it is a treatable condition. In addition to the possibility of clinical interventions through the use of prescribed medications or therapy, there are a number of activities and resources available to help keep older adults engaged in good mental health and spirits. So the next one that I want to get started with is the next couple of slides will be, how to deal with things and kind of more coping strategies when it comes to our mental health. So dealing with retirement, right? So this can be a major source of stress for, somebody, because this is usually a very, very important part of someone's life, right? That's maybe somebody's been working at the same job, for example, for decades, or maybe they've just been working for decades on end, which is not unusual. So the stress may be even greater if, for example, somebody was forced out because of their employer's retirement policy. So from what I've heard, some people are forced to retire at the age of 65, when very much that people can maybe even work 10, 15 years beyond that. So that can be a huge source of, sadness to somebody as well, and the loss of something. They're grieving something, right? So when we think of grief, a lot of people think of grief that, maybe it's the death of a loved one or a divorce, for example. But this is grief in itself, because whoever it is, the person, they found meaning through their work. They used to go there every day. Maybe they feel that they have a loss, they're losing their sense of identity, and they feel less, worthwhile. And it's probably that they're going to miss the daily contact with their coworkers, with friends who became their friends from work. So what can we do when it comes to retirement? So what we can do is, for example, make a list of the abilities and skills that someone has. So the skills and experience somebody have, gained from a lifetime of work may help them succeed in a small business or do valuable volunteer work for a favorite charity, for example. Another thing is to, enrich your life by renewing contacts with family members who you haven't been in touch with or old friends. Usually what happens is, we're so busy with the day-to-day life and the struggles and whatnot, with work especially. And sometimes it can get in the way of, relationships, or especially family members who we've been meaning, I've been meaning to call, I've been meaning to visit. But this is a really good time, to reinvest and build those connections once again. The next thing to do is maybe renew the interest in the hobbies and activities that you enjoy. So, again, with work, there was that lack of time. When we're working, we're always looking for that time. And sometimes we don't have that time, but now there's time after retirement. And if you can afford it, travel. Maybe not right now, but if you find it safe, but whenever you find it safe to go, but if you can afford it and you can do it, that's a fantastic thing and a great thing to do for one's mental health. And with traveling, you can, cover a lot of things, not just exploring, doing your hobbies. You can go and meet people, like for example, meeting the family members or friends we haven't been able to see in a long time. The next thing is talking about exercise. So once again, I'm sure we've all heard about exercise and how it's great for you, and maybe we're tired of hearing about it, but it needs to be said because it is so, so, so important. So what does exercise do, number one, for us? Number one, it improves our mood. It might make us happier. It alleviates stress. It doesn't have to be anything strenuous or complicated. It can just be going for a walk, It could be for those of us who are comfortable to do a little bit of strength training. And even strength training, a lot of people have the misconception that it has to include like heavy weights. It can be body weight. It can be resistance bands, for example. All these things, though, they benefit the mind and the body by boosting confidence and also reducing the risk of falls. So by staying active and getting enough exercise, these things are very important for, older adults' mental health and our well-being. In fact, low impact exercises like stretching or strength training are actually necessary to keep seniors healthy and reduce the risk of, common age-related problems such as, bone fractures, joint pain, and other chronic illnesses. So in addition to the physical benefits, exercise can also help manage stress, anxiety, and depression in seniors, which can be very detrimental to seniors' health as physical ailments and injuries. So in summary, exercise is really important in order to maintain positive senior mental health. So nutrition. So I want to talk a little bit about the brain. So when it comes to the brain and healthy eating is linked to an increase in volume of the brain of a particular area called the hippocampus. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but the hippocampus, this is related to memory volume. So there's research to say that the healthier we eat, I'm just generalizing here, but if we have a better diet, that's going to be linked to better cognition. So that's just one aspect of healthier eating. But another aspect is being able to just feel better, because that saying, you are what you eat. So if we have a very poor diet, what is that going to make us feel? That's going to make us feel maybe lethargic, very tired, even irritable. And the better our diet is, the more well-balanced it is with nutrients, vitamins, minerals, we're going to feel better. And also we're going to sleep better. Another thing is to stay hydrated. That's so, so important. That's important for everybody. We need to stay hydrated in order to just maintain our basic body functions. And sometimes a lot of people don't like water, and then this part goes neglected. But if you know that about yourself, try to make that a goal for yourself to hydrate yourself better. So sleep. I'm going to talk to you about sleep hygiene. So what is sleep hygiene? Sleep hygiene is the rituals, the behaviors, and the norms we follow around sleep. So for example, it might be, before I go to sleep, I read Isha right before, I read some Quran, I do some dhikr, I maybe read a light book, for example, and then I go into bed, and then that's when, that's my sleep routine, that's my sleep hygiene. So some things to consider when it comes to sleep hygiene. For some people, it's important, to watch the temperature of the room. Some people like it to be maybe cooler. In fact, it's actually recommended for the room to be a bit cooler when we're trying to sleep. Some people like darkness. Some people like it to be quiet, uncomfortable. Some people like white noise, for example. Some people need the sound of something. Some people need the sound of the fan. Whatever it is for you, try to, figure that out, what it is. And these things can, really make your sleep better. So consistency is very important. What are the effects of poor sleep hygiene? So it's going to be irritability, exhaustion, you're easily distracted, you're having maybe weight gain, there's learning issues, there's memory issues, for example. Maybe your reasoning is suffering, for example. These are all things to consider. So having a regular bedtime and wake up time are good, but the main thing is to have the same wake up time, because sometimes life happens and you end up going to bed a bit later than planned, and that's okay. But the point is to do your best to have a consistent wake up time. So let's say, for example, currently your sleep hygiene is really bad and you keep going to bed at 3 a.m., for example, and that's pretty late. And then you're getting up really late because you're having disturbed sleep, and then you're getting up around 11. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying if somebody wants to improve that. If somebody wants to improve that, and let's say that they want to make their wake up time 8 a.m., 9 a.m. So it doesn't mean that they should start going to bed at 1 or 12. If they can, sure. But in the beginning, it's going to be challenging to be able to make yourself sleepy around 12 or 1 because you're so used to going to bed at 3 a.m. So it's going to happen. The first week, I'm telling you, is going to be very challenging. So what's going to happen is that you have the same wake up time. So no matter what time you fall asleep, so let's say you fall asleep at 4 a.m. and your goal is to start waking up at 9 a.m., then you have to start waking up at 9 a.m. Even though you're not going to want to wake up because you only went to bed at 4 a.m., you're going to have to wake up at 9 a.m. You will be tired, you will be groggy, but eventually your circadian rhythm will adjust and you will start feeling sleepier earlier in the day. So that's just a little bit about sleep hygiene. So not having caffeine too close to bedtime. Some people respond very differently. Some people, they can't have it like 6 to 8 hours before. So if you know that about yourself, don't have it. If you can handle 3 to 4 hours before, then sure. But everyone's different. So you just have to know yourself. So exercise during the day, of course, don't do it too close to bedtime, as well as getting regular exposure to sunlight. So we need, first of all, that dose of vitamin D. Where we live, we are all naturally deficient in vitamin D anyways. So that's why we all need to work even harder to go and get our dose of vitamin D. So now that, alhamdulillah, the weather is a lot better, things are safer. This is a really good time to get outside, go for walks, work on your hobbies, explore things, meet up with other people. All these things contribute to good overall positive mental health. Meditation, for example, for everyone, this is different. For some people, this is after their salah. For some people, this is dhikr. Everyone's different, but this is something that can help with sleep. Avoiding screen time. So this is something that's a very big problem. And this is not just for older adults, this is for everybody. And I'm sure we're all guilty of it. But, a lot of us take our phones, with us to bed. So it might be on the nightstand next to us. And then we're lying in bed and we're scrolling through our phone. And what happens is we don't think about it, first of all. Number one, we don't think about it. Number two, we're probably cutting a lot of time from our sleep time because we're just scrolling through our phones. But what's important to remember is that in our phones is something called the blue light that's emitted, and which actually activates our brain even more. So you might notice that when you are, scrolling through your phone, especially in the dark and when you're lying down in your bed, right, you're actually not able to have like a good night's sleep. I know there are some people who might be able to, overcome the blue light and sleep great. Mashallah, that's great. But this is a common struggle that a lot of people have. So if you're that person who takes the phone to bed and you have a difficult time putting it away, then I would suggest putting your phone onto grayscale mode. It makes your phone really boring. So you can go to like general accessibility, color filters, and put it into a black and gray or grayscale mode, and that's what it'll do. And you actually will not want to spend that much time on your phone. Whatever videos you're going to spend watching on YouTube, the time you're going to spend, it's not going to be as stimulating because it's in black and white. So that's something that is important to consider. Also, the last thing I want to add is keeping your bed for only sleep. If you are feeling tired, but you're not going to sleep, do not go on your bed, because you need to only associate, your mind needs to associate the bed with sleep time. I know a lot of people will go and just lie down on their bed, but they're like wide awake or they're like talking on the phone. But what happens is that can contribute to us having more difficulty sleeping because the brain is not associating the bed with sleep time, it's associating with everything else. So what we want to do is our brain to learn to associate it with sleep time. So that almost as soon as we hit our pillow, that we're able to start feeling sleepy. So those are all things to consider when it comes to our sleep habits. Spirituality. This is something that's really important to work on. So, what is spirituality? So everyone will answer this question differently because it's a very personal matter. But sometimes it involves, search for answers, maybe about our existence. So what is my purpose? Why are we here? And, our deen, through our deen, we are able to answer these questions. It's an inward experience versus religion is more formal, it's behavior oriented. And, but spirituality, for example, and religion combined, for example, grieving, it can give us extra stability as we're coping with the loss of a loved one. And it allows us to reflect on what they meant to us, their time in this dunya, for example. And increased time to reflect is another thing. So, whether it's pondering the mysteries of life and reflect on everything that we have done so far. So, as part of the experiences of aging and spirituality, older adults may adapt new habits or ways of living. For example, many spiritually inclined seniors may place more focus on their inner lives than on the external expectations. They may speak from their hearts more frequently. They might put more effort into making meaningful connections with other people. They might develop more patience and attentiveness. They might seek more opportunities for silence and solitude. They might change their perception of time by living more in the moment. And overall spirituality, it'll allow them more time for reflection, sharing, and loving. What is psychosocial well-being? So it, is our cognitive, social, emotional, and spiritual domains of our life. So, for example, participating in a social club or volunteering for a cause that you care about will help you to feel connected and filled with purpose and can give meaning to somebody. So staying involved in the community can help boost one's self-esteem, and it enables them to become more resilient to stress. So maintaining strong social connections is one of the best ways to help prevent mental health issues from disrupting your life. So accepting the support of people who are willing and eager to listen and let you share your feelings. So good friends and supportive loved ones can help you to improve your outlook and lower your stress. So they may also be able to help you solve any practical issues that affect the quality of your life, such as finding reliable transportation or managing your finances. These are just examples, but it's really, really important. And I cannot emphasize more that social connections are so, so important, especially at this stage in life, because we want to avoid older adults being isolated and feeling lonely, because as we know, then from there it can lead to, depression or anxiety. Challenging the brain. So in the dispelling the myths, we learned that this is absolutely not true, that older adults cannot learn new things. They can totally train their brains to improve their brain health. The brain is an instrument, right? It's living, it's changing, it's malleable. The more you use your brain, the more different ways you can use it, and the more flexible and adaptive thinking patterns are that you can develop. And just as the body needs physical activity and stimulation to stay healthy, the brain also needs stimulation to stay sharp and avoid cognitive decline as we age. So according to Harvard Health Publishing, brain games can help sharpen certain thinking skills such as processing speed, planning skills, reaction times, decision-making, and short-term memory. Any activities that keeps the mind engaged and working towards solving problems contributes to brain health. But some of the most common and accessible activities for seniors include, reading and writing. These are all great forms of, challenging the brain, great forms of activities. Some things that, are great are, for example, Sudoku. That's very simple, and you don't even need a gadget for it, right? You don't need technology. There are crosswords, there are word searches. I'm just speaking like for activities that have existed for the longest time. If you like your phone, there's, different, I'm just looking at my phone for some of the apps that exist. There's something called Wordscape, for example, which makes you have to like make words out of the word bank, that the letters bank that they give you, for example. The list goes on. These are just ideas, but again, it's really important to keep our brain as stimulated as possible. So dealing with physical changes. So it's bound to happen that as you get older, your body is going to change. You may tire, then more easily than you used to. You may become ill more often. You may not see or hear as well as you did when you were younger, but there are ways to deal with this. So number one, this might seem, like obvious, but keeping a positive attitude. So remember that slowing down does not mean you are coming to a complete stop, right? Chances are you will still be able to do almost all the things you used to, but you may just need to take a little bit more time or you may just need to learn to pace yourself. Visiting your family doctor regularly is so important so that he or she can then deal with any changes or symptoms that require medical attention. So, once again, as I was referring to before, when loved ones, for example, seniors or older adults, what happens is that ageism, right, exists. And, because of their loved one's age, they might not bring that up to their family doctor. So let's say, often at times, family members will accompany their senior family members to their doctor's appointment. And, this is a good time, if you have been noticing any changes, to bring that up or urge your loved one to bring it up in their appointment, and not to ignore or neglect anything just because of their age. If the doctor does not find it to be concerning and just finds it as a natural part, then maybe you can leave it, but do bring it up with your family doctor. Being careful about medications. So as you get older, they may begin to interact differently with other drugs, and that can affect you differently than before. So once again, make sure your doctor knows about all your medications, even those prescribed by another doctor. Taking responsibility for your own health. So don't hesitate to ask your doctor questions. So this is really important. And by taking responsibility for your own health, it's kind of all the things we've talked about before, right? Exercise, nutrition, sleeping well, changing your eating habits. So again, adopting a balanced diet with fewer fatty foods, for example, and trying not to overeat. So in terms of resources, depending on where you live, but right now I just wanted to give you the resources that exist more virtually. So obviously the starting place would be your family physician, and they can determine, do you need medications? Do you need to see a psychiatrist? Do you need to be prescribed certain medications? Do you need further interventions? And your family physician might recommend you to go to use programs such as Bounce Back, which is a self learning tool that exists, that you do it at your own pace, and there is a coach that checks in with you. They call you every, I don't know how often it is, but they will call you to check in with you. So it's essentially, a self-paced learning, for example, when it comes to depression, anxiety. So they use the therapy model of cognitive behavioral therapy. I can answer, if anybody wants to know what that means, I can answer that in the question portion. Then there's Wellness Together Canada. You can check that out on their website. They have a lot of good resources. There's distress crisis hotlines, which are important to know the numbers of, depending on where you live as well. So if you are having suicidal thoughts and you think you're going to harm yourself, it's important to know the numbers of these hotlines and distress centers, and you can easily find them just by Googling them. Imams are a great resource, especially for the spiritual aspect and the religious aspect. So I'm sure, depending wherever you are in your masajid, that you can contact the imam to set up counseling. And there's always private counseling. So Cedarway Therapy is one of many private counseling services available. And, you can always pick and choose who you would like to talk to. And these are just some of the resources that do exist out there. There are many, many, many more, but these are just a general framework that I wanted to provide you. So I don't know what happened, but this brings us to the question aspect. Okay, and I will do that. I will post the crisis hotlines for Peel I'll do that by the end of this presentation. But does anybody have any questions? So what I will do is I'll add the crisis number for Mississauga. I can add it right here. So this is 24 hours, 7 days a week. And if you do have any further questions, you can feel free to email me here. Inshallah, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about mental health or related to anything I presented on. Okay then, inshallah, I guess we will leave it there. Thank you so much for attending my talk today. Inshallah, I hope that it was beneficial for everybody, and please forgive me if I misspoke or if for any of my shortcomings, such as trying to share my screen earlier. I do apologize about that, but I guess we're done for today, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Sister Mariam. Take care.